Welcome, Seekers, to another episode of Seekers of Otherworldly and Unknown Legends. You all know me. I'm Josh, your host. I've been with you for the last 14 episodes, but tonight I bring our new guest and hopefully future co host, my little sister Heather, hailing from St. Louis. Heather, give everybody a wave and introduce yourself.
Hi. So, as Josh said, we are both born and raised in St. Louis. He ventured out to Indiana to build a life in the boonies, which is fabulous because he has all these chickens that I love to pet when I'm there. But I recently got married and we are planning a trip through the New England states for all of the haunted festivities. And I am currently, until then, living vicariously through my brother who has this amazing video vlog, blog, whatever you call it. And I'm happy to be a part of it when I can.
Excellent. So, over the last 14 episodes, you guys have seen me kind of delve into a lot of scripts of different states, the local history, the folklore of the different states, but I've never really gone into a whole lot of information about myself. So, we are going to do a little bit more of a introduction of both of ourselves and kind of how and why we've gotten into this. I know Heather just gave you a brief little snippet about her plan to actually do some haunted tours. So I myself, I've been into spirituality, metaphysics, mythology, paranormal, and all things that go bump in the night. Always been a big horror movie buff, but I would definitely say that a lot of my interest in this has come from mythology. Um, just kind of always had a huge interest in fantasy, science fiction, and then, like I said, mythology, and kind of digging into where those stories come from, where how someone just imagines up a creature like a dragon, for instance. So this has kind of been an interesting delve into where some of those stories come from and what the motivation and the inspiration is behind those. And then, of course, kind of looking into the theory that I've presented that maybe some of these creatures actually do exist, just on a different plane or a different um, dimension than where we currently dwell. So, now I will say outside of the podcast, I actually work full time as a registered veterinary technician. So I'm not all about cryptids, not all about the paranormal, but it's definitely what I would prefer to be doing full time if it actually paid me to do full time. So right now it's just kind of something that I'm kicking off and hoping to see it grow over the years that I intend to be doing this. So definitely the podcast makes me no money right now. I can't emphasize that enough. So definitely it kind of relies on our subscribers and our views as to whether or not we decide to keep this going. So I can't stress enough. If you're not already subscribed or following, please do so. And if you know anyone that might be interested in watching any of our content, please like and share as well. So that's a little bit more about me, my background, and what I actually do for a living. So, Heather, kind of give them a little bit more information about you, kind of what you do, and a little bit of how you kind of got involved with this with me.
Sure. So, what do I do? What don't I do? I recently planned a friend's wedding down to the flower arrangements that I did and the centerpieces, and I did hair and makeup. I did the whole shebang. I'm very artsy. I have kind of a side gig of my own where I sell paintings and earrings. No, I did not make these. I typically don't wear my own stuff because I would rather sell it and have someone else enjoy it. Plus, if it's mine, I can always take it apart and tinker with it. I can't tinker with somebody else's work. Same goes for paintings. Nothing on my walls is mine. Um, however, I get paid to do a couple part-time jobs. Nothing fancy, nothing, too noteworthy, but it pays the bills. I was in HR for a while, so I've got lots of fun stories. Um, but otherwise, I've always had an interest in kind of the otherworldly stuff, whether it's ghosts, demons, cryptids, all the, I used to collect stories, so I would ask strangers, do you have anything that you can't explain, whether it's aliens or ghosts or angels, or and I've collected stories over the years. Um Josh and I used to watch horror movies growing up together, and I remember one time, which I don't know if you remember this or not, but we were watching the entire Friday the 13th series in a row, and we started taking bets on who would die next, how they would die, and what asinine thing would happen to put them in that situation to begin with. So,
We actually also had the theory that because we noticed that in every single one of those movies, it was drugs, alcohol, and sex. And the person who survived at the end of almost every movie was the one person that was not getting to partake in any of that.
yeah, so clearly we're both dead.
Yes, actually, I do. The biggest reason that we actually kickstarted that binge watching, shall we call it, marathon of Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, if you recall, was because of the Freddy versus Jason movie. We
Yes,
wanted to see all of the movies prior to watching that. So,
yes. And if you haven't seen it, you don't have to watch the entire series of either one of those franchises to enjoy Freddy vs. Jason. It is just as ridiculous by itself without any of the other franchises like in its entirety. So, definitely recommend.
all right. So, tonight, rather than telling you other people's stories, um, we're actually going to tell you some stories of our own and experiences of our own. So, Heather actually shared one with me, and I did a little bit of digging into this, but I'm going to let her tell the story first. So, go ahead, Heather. Tell them your story, tell them your experience. And I cannot stress this enough because I am going to see if I can recreate the creature that you saw that I can potentially tag before I release this episode. So, I'll see if I can manage to make that happen. If not, look forward to future episodes. I will definitely be sharing that creature with you at some point if I'm able to recreate it. So, as detailed as you can get it. Go ahead.
Okay. I would be blown away if you could recreate it because I have been searching for years for some sort of an answer to this and I've never found anything. So, let's take it back to high school. Um I was a competition dancer, which means that we would go to the same place every year for a recital. I did competitions elsewhere all around the state, but I would go to the same place every single year for my production company, and we would dance at the same place every year, same weekend in July. Always fell on my mom's birthday weekend, which was kind of fun. Um, so competition dancers would always arrive far before anyone else, and we were always the last ones to leave because we were performing at all three shows over the weekend. So, my junior year, it was the only year that my friend Gabby was able to join me and see me perform. So, two teenage girls in the back of an auditorium with a brand new digital camera. It was the first year that digital cameras were actually, available to the public, which kind of dates me. Sorry, I'm old. Um, so we were playing with this digital camera, and there was maybe 12 people in the entire auditorium. Now, this takes place at Fox High School in their auditorium called Rickman Auditorium. It is kind of your standard auditorium, seats about 250 to 300 people if you include the balcony. And I had access to backstage, both left and right, upstairs, downstairs, the whole shebang. So people were kind of matriculating in, and it was still really, really slow. It was early in the day, probably around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I have never seen anything weird in this place. I was dancing from the time I could walk, and I have never seen or felt anything unusual in this place year after year after year of going there for the recitals. So We're in the back of the auditorium. We're taking pictures. Click, 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 click. Nothing weird when I was taking pictures. And we're talking about whatever teenage girls talk about. And we're clicking through the pictures and click, click, click. And we both stop and I click back and we both just stare for what seems like forever, but it was probably about a minute and a half, which, if you've ever sat a minute and a half in utter silence, it's a long time. So we studied this photo and I click past it and we look at each other and we're like, what the hell was that? And she starts asking me all the questions to kind of figure out a real reason for it. Is this a costume? Is this a performance piece? Is this a joke? And it's none of those things. We didn't have the budget for this kind of thing. So I'll describe the picture to you and then I'll tell you what happened to the picture. I know that's your first question. It's always the first question. No, I don't have the picture anymore, but I promise I'll explain. So, about 4 rows in front of us, from our right to our left, is a perfect profile, perfect picture, perfect color, perfect saturation, perfect Christmas clearness, everything of a middle aged balding guy. Nothing extraordinary about him whatsoever. And he's passing perfect profile in front of us. What is directly behind him, mere inches behind him, also a perfect profile, is something that is not human. It has all pointed features, pointed nose, pointed chin. You could tell there was a little bit of a widow's peak. Pointed ear, you could see all of the curls and all of the detail in the ear. But when the hair all slicked back like gels, like it was gelled in those old days, slicked back to about here and then it smoked and just went away. You got all that perfect detail in the face, and then the body was just kind of nondescript and black. Um, some of the most stunning features, though, was that the skin was coal black, not like an African American. I mean, coal black skin, blacker than my top that I'm wearing now. And you could see even the cheekbone was high. You could see the little shine on the cheekbone. So it looked like the skin was pulled tight, super, super smooth. And the most disturbing part, the part that bothered us so, so much, gave us an utter sense of dread that I have never felt before or since. The eye that you could see shone like the tail light of a car. It was glowing red. So you have all these pointed features, all of these, details and everything in the face, perfect profile picture of a completely normal guy in front of him, and this glowing eye scared the hell out of us. So we click back to the picture and we stare at it a little while longer and we get off of it and our eyes are tearing up. It's just awful. It's horrible. And again, that sense of dread was just so overwhelming. We talked about it and we're like, I don't want to be connected to this thing. I don't want to have anything to do with it. What do we do with this? We need got to show somebody. So I looked all around the auditorium, one for the guy in the photo. I could not find the guy in the photo, the middle-aged balding guy. He was not backstage. He was not in the lobby. He was not outside in the parking lot. I could not find him. Next, I was looking for either one of our parents to show them the picture. They went off to lunch. We couldn't find them. They were bringing us food, taking their time, how parents do. So, couldn't find them. So, we're stuck with this photo. And we're like, this is so bad, inherently bad, evil to us. We had to get rid of it. And we talked about it at length. We had time to talk about it before we did it. And we're like, if we do this, no one is ever going to believe us. It scared us so bad, neither one of us cared. We deleted the photo and we never looked back. So over the years, I have reached out to demonologists. I've looked in dictionary books of demons. I've looked in folklore. I've looked at cryptids. I've looked in fiction. The closest thing that I've found is a Stephen King rendition of a skinwalker. Closest thing I could find in terms of parallels between what they look like. So that's why I say I would be blown away if my brother could find a cryptid that looks just like this thing. Um, so I have it burned in my memory. like it happened yesterday. So, a couple years after this happened, we were in college, and I didn't get to see my friend Gabby very much. She went to college out of town, and she was in town for a while, and we decided we were going to go to lunch, go shopping. And I was sitting in her living room, and there was a ghost show on. And she comes in, and I'm like, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" She's like, "Yeah, what's up?" And she sits down. I was like, "Do you remember that picture?" And her eyes started tearing up. I knew immediately she remembered it the exact same way that I did, but I had to ask anyway. I said, "Can you describe it to me? Because I want to make sure that my memory isn't playing tricks on me and that I remember it how it really was." And she described it to a T exactly as I've described it to you, right down to the inherent sense of evil and the overwhelming dread. So that's my story. The best I could tell is that it was some sort of demon, it because that's how it felt to us. Um, but I went back there the next year, again, never felt or thought anything different, and, it's something that's kinda always been a mystery in my mind.
Okay, so firstly, some clarifying points. Okay, there's a show. I might be Hulu, might be Netflix. I'm not even sure what channel it's on or streaming device it's on, but it's about a psychiatrist, a priest, and I think he's a hacker, and they basically investigate exorcisms together. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's called Evil.
Yes,
It's
evil. Thank
very
you.
good.
So the kind of demon presentations that you see in that show,
Mhm.
it sounds somewhat like what you're describing.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes.
So
So kind of that, and you kind of described the skin stretched across the bones, right?
mhm.
Kind of a gaunt, kind of sunken face,
It
very.
wasn't it didn't look unhealthy, it didn't look sunken. Because I know the demon that you're talking about in that show, and it does have a lot of really similar features, the pointed features, the red eyes. Um, so the eyes in mine glowed more, like, the glow was out to here. It was the craziest thing, it wasn't just red contacts like they have in the show. Um, and it didn't look sickly, it looked I mean, if a demon could look healthy, I guess the demon looked healthy. Um, However, there was one representation in film. It was the first, was it The Conjuring? Where there was a demon that was trying to get into his head, because he would, like, sleepwalk or transcend or something in his dreams, something to that effect. It was the first time you saw the demon. So,
Okay.
not when you see the demon altogether because he was all, like, tattooed and had, like, scars or markings on him, and he was red, and he was different once you actually saw him, but that first time where you get a glimpse of him, like, up in the corner of the room, that almost brought me to tears because it was just reminiscent right away of that demon, that thing that I saw, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's it." And then they showed it later in the movie, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's not it." So they've gotten really close, but we're on the same vein. That's again why I think more demon, because cinema and film has kind of gone that route too with the pointed features and the red eyes.
So I do kind of want to just emphasize at least my perspective when it comes to, your demons versus cryptids, all of that. Um, as a spiritualist, I don't necessarily believe in, kind of a heaven and hell concept. My belief more sits on a. I think there are realities layered, and I covered this actually quite a bit in my last episode when I touched base on some of the spiritual groups that um, have been or are still active and have these beliefs in other worlds or other dimensions, and most of them approach that perspective. If you think of, we live in a three-dimensional reality, right? So their theory is that there are fourth dimensions, fifth dimensions, sixth dimensions, even seventh dimensions layered on top of ours. One spiritualist, kind of another, I don't know if I'd call her a cryptid enthusiast as much as a paranormal enthusiast that I met at a convention once. She actually described her theory, um, regarding kind of your ghosts and apparitions that some people see as more of us seeing other periods of time that are layered with ours. So instead of thinking of time as linear, she had the theory that time was stacked and that sometimes we can go up and down on that spectrum of time in our space and be seeing things, which is why a lot of spirits and ghosts, at least based on her theory, continue to act out something from their time. You'll see somebody descending a staircase that is no longer there because in that time, that staircase is still there. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of like an echo from their time period.
Exactly. So all time is occurring at the same point in reality. So time and reality are two separate things, and time itself is more stacked and not all occurring in one place at one time. So I don't know. It was a very kind of mind-blowing concept to wrap your mind around. But then right there with it is the concept of stacked realities. Something or someone could be dwelling in the exact same spot as I am right now.
Trippy.
We're just not seeing it. Yeah. So, with that said, basically what I'm getting at there is whether it's a cryptid, a demon, a spirit, an angel, an alien, these are all things
One
that
scary ass angel.
it, it, so they basically these are all things that are existing outside of our visible range.
Yep.
Now, with that said, I did do a little bit of digging. So I think, let's see. Okay, so the Rickman Auditorium was actually built in 1986. So it's not been around for a very long time. There's not a whole lot of history there. I know I've covered a lot of information with the settling of the United States and the development and westward expansion and all of that. But because Missouri really wasn't settled until much later after the expansion began, there's really not a whole lot of history dating super far back. Now, with that said, there were a couple of things that did pop out. One very interesting piece in 1800 was referred to as the House Spring Murders, which actually did occur in Arnold, which is the same area as what Heather is referencing. I'm not sure if she mentioned, but the Rickman Auditorium is actually right there in Arnold, Missouri. So, March 19th, 1800, near the spring that gave House Spring its name, about 10 miles outside of Arnold, there was a settler at the settler Adam House. Um, okay, so the guy's name I think was Settler Adam, or maybe he was a settler. I'm not exactly clear on this, but we're gonna call him Adam House. All right. Um, he and his 8 to 9 year old son were killed by Osage warriors, so Native Americans. Um, the official report stated, and I quote, I found an old man dead, head cut off and laid at his side, and a few paces off, a boy, 8 or 9 years old, had also cut off, a small piece of maple sugar in his mouth.
Hmm.
The area was named House Spring to honor them. Few other points of interest that I found. 1986, there was a homicide on Jeffco Boulevard, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Rickman Auditorium is located just off of Jeffco Boulevard.
Just off of Jeffco Boulevard. So,
Okay.
if you're familiar at all with this area, Jeffco Boulevard changes names at least 20 times on that same like road. So it's called 6167. It's called Lindbergh Boulevard. It's called, Jeffco Boulevard. So that little bitty strip that's called Jeffco Boulevard is where Rickman Auditorium is off of.
Okay. So I guess it was the New Body Auto Shop, um, also located at Jeffco Boulevard, about 2.6 miles south of Rickman Auditorium. And again, this occurred June 27th of 1986. The owner, I'm not going to mention his name just out of respect, 46 years old. He was shot and found dead in the drainage ditch alongside Jeffco Boulevard. Arnold police called in the major case squad. This case still remains unsolved to this day. So, two interesting tidbits about that kind of general area around Rickman Auditorium. Now, again, as I said, Rickman Auditorium, it hasn't been around very long. There is no history of any kind of deaths that occurred in or around Rickman Auditorium. Um, the area where Rickman Auditorium was built also doesn't have a whole lot of history dating back. It was, I guess, Arnold, Missouri did see a lot of activity during the Civil War that kind of directly impacted that area. But again, no major battles occurred there. I think there was one battle that occurred about 20 miles outside of Arnold. Um, but one of the things that did occur, interesting tidbit, I don't think it has anything necessarily to do with this, but again, I love finding out this little bits of history about the areas that I'm looking into. So bushwhackers and jayhawkers terrorized Jefferson County during the Civil War periods. Um, Missouri was a border state with over 1,000 battles fought statewide. Jefferson County specifically dealt with brutal guerrilla raids, pro-Confederate bushwhackers and pro-Union jayhawkers from Kansas that used the area for revenge raids, burning farms, and killing civilians. So a little bit of death, but no major battles that occurred there. I also looked to see if there was any history of kind of occult activity, um, any paranormal activity, anything like that. Not a whole lot reported. There was one little YouTube video that I found that mentioned, I guess, allegedly Rickman Auditorium has its very own ghost. They kind of laugh about it. But the ghost's name is Molly. I don't necessarily know where they got Molly, but I do have a theory, and I'm going to be coming to that here in just a moment. So
I don't
I
think
guess
I
some of the
saw
people,
Molly.
I don't think you saw Molly either. But I guess some of the workers within the auditorium, people working behind, kind of backstage, have seen things kind of move on their own, and they've seen an apparition. But I think they just kind of nicknamed it Molly. Again, I wasn't able to find any specifics as to why they chose the name Molly, but there it is. Now, my theory behind where they got the name Molly. There is another legend that actually exists around the Arnold area. It is quoted as Missouri's most famous witch legend. So this is the legend of Molly Crenshaw. So interesting that there's a ghost named Molly supposedly haunting Rickman Auditorium, and then there's the Molly Crenshaw legend. Now, as the story goes, Molly Crenshaw was a practicing witch. Her body was butchered and buried in separate locations throughout the wooded countryside. Legend says the body parts still move underground, trying to reassemble themselves so that she can return and take her revenge. In the 1970s, the Crenshaw family allegedly removed her headstone from their private cemetery because local kids kept trying to steal it. So this legend dates back quite some years. That is why they were trying to steal her headstone, kind of high school kids, you know, a
Being
little
high school kids.
exactly, let's go and steal the witch's headstone, Um, so the story circulated also about a group of football players who tried to steal the headstone and were later found impaled on an iron fence of a graveyard.
See,
Now,
that's what you get when you're that's what you get when you're an obnoxious little high schooler. Be
yeah,
good.
don't trespass. Don't
Yeah.
mess with witches' graveyards.
I
Now,
thought that was a
I
given.
will say,
Whatever.
I will say, after doing some digging, this legend is absolutely not true. It was completely fabricated, completely made up, apparently by I think it was a teacher who was kind of educating his students on storytelling, and that's kind of created this story, and it has kind of evolved from there. And honestly, the Crenshaw family, which I did look into the headstone removal a little bit more, and I do think that that actually did occur. I think they removed the headstone to kind of combat the theft of the headstone or the attempts at theft of the headstone, trespassers, you name it. Um, Now, doing that, as often happens when things are enacted, fences put up, headstones removed, it kind of adds some, not credence, but fuel to the fire of the legend. Because of course that starts the question of, oh, then remove the headstone. Why would they remove the headstone if there's not something behind this legend? So, but again, Molly Crenshaw, she was not a practicing witch. She was never butchered. She was never dismembered. I actually did find the factual information on Molly Crenshaw. So, facts from records. Molly, now they did get the spelling incorrectly. Her actual name was spelled Mollie. The legend puts her as Molly. Small detail, but interesting bit that was pointed out. She was age 40. Let's see, 1910 census says 47, placing her at around 50 years old at the time of her death. The cause of her death was carbolic acid poisoning. It was also ruled a suicide.
What a nasty way to commit suicide.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Related to prominent St. Charles families, educated at St. Charles College, and she taught school until she lost her hearing. She was listed as white in the 1910 census, which dispels the myth that she was a free Jamaican slave, which apparently is another legend that was attached to the dismembered Molly Crenshaw legend. Internment was made in the family burial grounds, one grave, not quartered. Let's see. So, not a voodoo priestess, not murdered, not dismembered, not buried in four places. So, kind of putting that legend to rest, but it's still a fun legend. And let's see, other bits that I found. Actually, that pretty much. Oh, actually, no, there were some other bits. Marcus Arnold Cinema. So this was the closest evil presence report because I did look to see if there were any other reports of demon sightings, paranormal activity, weird evil sensations, anything like that. So um, again, the Marcus Arnold Cinema. Employees working late have described an evil presence, along with shadowy apparitions, cold spots, and being touched by unseen forces. Now, to give you a little bit of ground layout, this is only about 2 miles from the Rickman Auditorium. Um, there was also an investigation at the Arnold Cemetery. Team members witnessed a shadow figure doing a military crawl, unexplainable cold spots, a gate slamming shut on its own, and a piece of cement dropping from nowhere. Okay, so that kind of sums up the research that I was able to dig up on the Arnold area. Now, um, I said I was going to share one of my own stories, which actually kind of plays off of the same area. So around Assume did your story take place around high school, it sounds like, or more grade
Yeah,
school?
my junior year of high school.
Your junior year of high school. So throughout high school, now to put a little bit of dating to date both of us, unfortunately, I actually graduated high school 2002. Heather graduated high school
2006.
um, 2006. So while I was in high school, I was actually working at Walmart as an overnight stocker for a period of time. So stocking the shelves, that sort of thing. I also did that a little bit into my college years. Now, I think it was actually while I was in college at Jefferson College, and I was working at the Walmart there. And again, this is right there off of Jeffco Boulevard. Um, Walmart is not too far from the Rickman Auditorium, would you say?
No,
Okay.
maybe a mile.
Yeah. So one night, I was overnight stocking, and now if any of you have never actually worked as an overnight stalker at Walmart, there's kind of a skeleton crew of staff, really not a whole lot of us. I think maybe we might have had 10 to 12 people working at one shift. And we kind of split off into our own designated areas of the store. So, sporting goods, infants, the food and snack area, um, hardware, whatever. So I was actually on this particular night in charge of stocking the infants department. So putting away the diapers and the clothes and all of that. Now, when you're working in your specific department, there is no one else around. Each person works their own department by themselves. There's not somebody helping out to unload any of the pallets. So you kind of park your pallet in the middle aisle, kind of where everybody walks through during normal business hours, and you unload all your stuff into its designated areas on the shelves. So I'm in the process of unloading an entire pallet full of diapers and baby wipes, and I went to take a package of diapers and put it on the shelf. And so I kind of turned, went to put it on the shelf, and when I turned to go back towards my pallet, there was um, it it wasn't, I wanna say spirit, but I couldn't see through this person. It looked like a real person. It actually shocked me to the point where I kind of threw up my hands because I thought they were gonna hit me. So this person was at a dead run, as if they were at a full-on sprint right towards me. So that kinda caused me to, throw up my hands. And as soon as I threw up my hands and they would have actually hit me, they just disappeared, gone. So this was not a night that I was particularly tired. I had not been up late. I had plenty of rest. I was completely alert during my shift. I have no idea what this was. Some might theorize that it was a spirit. Some might actually argue that, oh well, you work the overnight shift. You were probably tired. You probably just like dozed off for a second and saw something, kind of a micro nap dream sort of state. Um, Now, what kind of stood out to me when I was doing the research is the military crawl, the guy doing the military crawl in the cemetery. And with kind of army forces, military, there's a lot of running that's going on. So could it be that maybe I was actually seeing maybe a Civil War spirit or something that was running through? I do not remember what
That's
the
that's actually my
outfit
first
was,
impression too.
kind of the military thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was thinking of the guy, the shadow that was in the military crawl too, and I was thinking, Missouri is one of those places that there was a lot of fighting before records were really well maintained. So, I think it's entirely possible that you saw a whisper of a memory or a timeline that was in a different spot, and it happened to overlap with you a little bit.
Yeah. So it's one of the only times that I've actually ever seen a manifestation, we'll call it. Other than that, I've heard things, experienced things in places I've lived, but that was the only time I've ever actually seen something that I couldn't explain.
Hmm. Well, I actually have another story of something that I couldn't explain. Um, I'm not going to call it a ghost just yet because I didn't see an apparition like you did. I didn't see a person. I didn't see a fog. I didn't see anything, but I heard stuff. So, Josh and I grew up in this house, and we had a room addition put on when I was 16. So, Josh, that would make you what, going into college?
Yeah, if you were 16, I probably would have been 19, 20. So,
Okay. So, he was already out of the house, which means our other siblings were also out of the house. So, let me describe this room addition to kind of give you a lay of the land. So, we had a master bedroom, which was originally our parents' room, that they cut a sliver of the hallway to a sliver of that room to make a hallway. So initially they shaved off a section for the hallway and made that room a little bit smaller, and that was going to be my room, my new room. I was super excited. And then they had the hallway go into a new, brand new master bedroom, and they added on a master bath. So that was all brand new to the house. They actually added on to the house to make that. So I don't know about you, but I had never seen or felt or heard or seen anything weird in that house in the 16 years prior to this. Um, so our mom used to get up at the crack of dawn and go into work. And she used to wake me up so that I could go into her room on my days off where I wasn't working and I didn't have school or anything. She would wake me up and go into her room so I could lay on her waterbed and watch TV. Because back then we didn't have TVs in every bedroom like we do now. um, so I was in there and I was not asleep. I was watching TV. I was very awake. And we had plastic sheeting, real thick, coarse plastic sheeting. It's not exactly see through. You can maybe see shadows or something through it, light, but no
kind of
detail at
that
all.
construction.
Construction sheeting, yeah, plastic
Yeah,
stuff. So we
yeah.
had that in front of all the doorways, going all the way down the hallway. So if I'm laying on her bed at the very end of that hallway, I can't see down the hallway and I can't see into any of the rooms or anything like that. It's just a plastic sheeting over the doorway. So I'm sitting there and I hear a little crinkle. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought maybe it was the wind. And then I heard another crinkle, but it sounded like a footstep. And I'm 16. I'm in the house by myself. So I started kind of getting nervous, like there was maybe someone in the house. So I called out to Josh, thinking maybe he had come home for the weekend. I called out to my mom and my stepdad, and I didn't hear anybody. Nobody answered me. So again, I kind of relaxed and I leaned back and I unmuted the TV and started watching TV again. And then I heard something else and I put it on mute. And I'm like, oh, it's the cats. But all three cats were asleep on the bed with me. So I'm like, okay, it's none of my family members. It's not the cats. What is making noise in the hallway? And I listen and I listen and I listen and I don't hear anything. So I'm like right there about to press unmute on the TV again and I hear real heavy footsteps on plastic going away down the hall. And it scares the crap out of me. I was absolutely convinced that there was someone in the house. So I finally, after a few minutes, I got up enough courage to grab something. And of course, it's a construction site at that point. So I found a hammer in the bedroom and I get up the courage to peel back the plastic. There's nobody in the hallway. I look in every room, even downstairs in our creepy basement and the creepy little crawl space that they called a bathroom down there. You remember that creepy bathroom that nobody ever used? um, I checked every inch of the house. All the doors were locked and closed. All the windows were locked and closed. There was no draft. There was no person. There was no nothing. So either someone was in the house and had a key to our house and locked up after them, or there was something going on. Maybe a whisper of something. And the only thing I can figure is that it is not uncommon to have ghostly activity after some sort of a remodeling phase of a house.
Kind of
Uh,
disturbs the
it
energy of the
disturbs
house.
everything. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the only thing I can think of, but that's my only ghost story. Aside from that, you know, little spell at the Myrtle House plantation. Um, but that's all I got.
And the Myrtle Plantation, you will probably get to hear those stories at some point. Heather and I actually both went to Louisiana together. I know I kind of touched base a little bit on some of that with my episode covering Louisiana. But we'll probably circle back and revisit that at future episodes, kind of in this format of kind of telling some of our own experiences. So, um, talking of experiences in homes that we've lived. So this one, it was not a malignant spirit by any means. If it was indeed a spirit, could have just been weird, faulty wiring. But wait till you hear the story, because I don't think it was faulty wiring. I think it was some kind of activity occurring in this home. So this was an older home in Boonville, Missouri. I was actually living by myself at this point. I had actually gone through a breakup, and rather than moving back to St. Louis, as a bunch of my friends really wanted me to, I wanted to stay in town, even though there was really nothing there, nothing keeping me there aside from my job, which was completely transferable. Still working for Walmart at that time, by the way, but just in Boonville. So this was an older house, had kind of that old, not even brick, but actual stone, like broken pieces of rock that had been layered on top of each other and cemented. You know what I mean? Kind of that older cellar type look. So that was the basement. It was the walls were completely made of stacked stone that had been stuck together with cement. The floor was just concrete, and in the middle of the basement was kind of this raised up concrete slab. I assume this was probably done this way because of potential for flooding. And the washer and dryer actually sat on this concrete slab. Um, the washer and dryer that were at the house actually came with the house. I was just renting at the time. Now, at the exact, well, not exactly, but around 3 o'clock in the morning, every morning, the washing machine would kick on its own.
Well,
So,
that's
funny
interesting.
enough, Funny enough, I actually got to the point with this that I started putting dirty laundry in the washing machine before I went to bed, knowing that it was going to kick on around 3 o'clock every morning. So
Did it finish the cycle for you too?
it absolutely finished the cycle. Yes, it would run a full cycle that would start around 3 o'clock in the morning. Strangest thing, I never questioned it. Of course, at this point, I had been very involved in spirituality and practicing metaphysically. And I was like, you know what? It's not hurting me. It's actually doing my laundry for me. So I'm just going to let it do its thing. But yeah, so kind of a interesting story there. Um, One other experience I've had, and this is the last experience that I can really go into aside from, some of the investigation ones that we've done. This was actually right here in Indiana. It was after I had moved here. I had heard that there were actually Pukwudgie legends. Now, I did go a little bit into the Pukwudgie legend. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this one, Heather, but I'll just kind of do a brief reiteration. So, Pukwudgie are kind of a Native American woodland spirit, and they're kind of, as often happens with these, we'll call them little cryptids, or cryptids of short stature. So, fairies, gnomes, goblins, that sort of thing. All very playful and trickster esque. So I was, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go check this out because I've heard of this legend. It's actually at Mountain State Park here in Indiana, which was right in my backyard. Because when I moved here, I was living in Anderson. So I thought, all right, I'm going to pop over to Mountain State Park. I'm going to go for a walk through this park and see if I see any Pukwudgie. Um, so I would, again, spiritually speaking, when you're, investigating or looking into any kind of spirits or anything like that, leave an offering. It's just kind of showing that we mean no harm. We're not out to cause any harm to these creatures if they are indeed there, and if they're not there, well, then we're feeding the wildlife. So what I actually took with me was some kind of Irish flapjacks. So uh, pancakes made with oatmeal, so I would kind of break off a little piece and I'd toss it, anytime I'd find a little hollow under a tree or a weird little hole in the ground, I'd toss some of that in and just kind of walking along. So at one point there was this tree, had this kind of almost like the tree was up on stilts, nice little hollow underneath it, almost like something had raised up the tree and created itself like a nice little hut to hide in during the rainstorms. If you're thinking of like a small little creature that could crawl under there and take shelter from a storm.
Sounds
So I'm
cozy.
often, what's that?
I said it sounds cozy.
So I'm in the process of tossing a little piece of a flapjack in there, and I go to stand back up, and off in the brush. So it's kind of all this like ground cover, tall weeds, that sort of thing off the path. There, there's this one sapling that was kind of sticking up above the rest, and it was whipping back and forth like this really fast. Nothing else around it was moving. It was honestly almost like something had gone running through the brush, but it only somehow disturbed that one sapling. So maybe I did actually have close contact with a Pukwudgie.
Ugh. I'm picturing a little guy at the bottom of it just going woo and bouncing it back and forth. That's what I'm picturing right now. Cool.
7-minute lull.
Yeah.
um, any
I
other
told you a minute and a
stories?
half of silence is a long time. I said that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And definitely to the audience, just kind of bear with us as we kind of get into kind of a rhythm of doing these episodes like this, because this is definitely changing up the atmosphere and kind of changing up the approach. But I kind of like to keep things um, new, introduce something new every now and then. So um, you probably get bored of just hearing me talk about other people's stories. And so I thought this would be a fun opportunity to kind of, one, introduce my new co host, and two, kind of give us a little bit of a different approach to episodes. So now, as I've mentioned previously, we will actually be, or I had actually said that I would be at the Grafton Monster Festival. But here's the real fun treat. Heather here will actually also be co-running the booth at the Grafton Monster Festival in West Virginia in July is when we're going. Is that correct?
I
Or
believe so.
June?
It's
Or
it.
is it June?
Let me just look. Hold on. I'm gonna look for us. So we have June 12th and 13th.
Yes. So yeah, June 12th and 13th, you will see the both of us live and in person at the Grafton Monster Festival. If any of you that have been watching these episodes are actually going to be attending or would like to attend, please stop by and actually introduce yourselves. We are hoping to maybe do a little bit of an episode just kind of covering the event, maybe talking to some of the locals about their experiences, hopefully getting some history of, like actually hearing people's experiences with the Grafton Monster in kind of some of the other paranormal and cryptid occurrences that have happened there in West Virginia. And as you may recall, West Virginia is kind of chock full of local folklore as well. Um, so yeah, again, if you're going to be there, please do stop by. We love meeting new people. We love hearing your stories, and honestly, just hearing a little bit of feedback as far as kind of what you've liked, what we can improve upon. As I said, this is very much so in its infancy, and so we're kind of trying new things, trying different approaches, and just trying to grow this channel. So, and to my, I think I'm at 22 subscribers now. I really want to say thank you to every single one of you. Every time I log in and check and I see that I've gotten new subscribers, I can't even tell you kind of how that makes a person feel when they're kind of just doing this in their free time and
So
kind of exactly. Yeah, I'm pretty
I
sure I
get
text
phone
message
calls. I get phone calls and text messages like, "Oh, you hit 21." Yeah. So keep it coming
every
and
time an
keep your
episode takes off. Yeah, I'm definitely giving my little sister here a text and a shout out and like, hey, this episode hit 120 views, which I don't know what it was that we did differently that attracted so many views for the I think it was the Missouri cryptids, kind of the bestial type cryptid episode that I did, but that hit 120 views, which kind of blew all of my other episodes out of the waters. Again, thank you to everyone that's kind of following. Thank you to everyone that's clicking and watching these episodes. It really does mean a lot. And I guess with that, I think we're pretty much finished up tonight. So I know I said it at the beginning of this episode, and I'm sure I made it pretty evident with this last little spiel of kind of a shout out to all of our viewers and followers and subscribers. If you like this episode, if you like any of our content, please do share it with people. Get it out there on social media, like the episode, and definitely hit that subscribe button. Um, right now, I've got a pretty humble goal. I'd like to see myself. I think my next benchmark is going to be, let's say, when I hit that 25, which we're almost there, almost to 25. 25 does nothing for me. 100 does nothing for me. Honestly, nothing's going to happen as far as monetizing this content until I hit 1,000 subscribers. But I'm not really in this to kind of get to that benchmark, but I do like to give myself a little bit of a goal and celebrate every time I hit those goals. Definitely seeing myself hit the double digits. That was kind of that first big one. And then when I saw it past 20, that was a nice little moment of celebration as well. So really looking forward to seeing it hit that
yeah.
25. So I
Every
just need,
single one
now
helps.
what is that? Three more subscribers, and we'll hit that 25. So if you've not already hit that subscribe button, please help us get to that 25, and then we could start working on that next benchmark. So, um, as I've said before, I do have a website up and running. I am working on trying to get somebody in to start managing the website a little bit more for me because time is very restricted for me to do this. So obviously, I spend a lot of my time doing a lot of digging and prep work for the episodes. So I don't have a whole lot of time to do the website management, but I am working on getting some merchandise that will be posted up on the website. I do try to keep putting some of the episodes on the website as well as some other content. The really big thing, I do have a fairly comprehensive list of cryptid and paranormal events that are occurring across the United States. I try to keep that event or that calendar as comprehensive as I can. If you might happen to pop into the website and you see any that are missing, please email us at soulfilearchives@gmail.com. So that's SOULFILES. No, Soulfile Archives. So ARCHIVES at gmail.com. If you've got stories that you'd like us to cover, things that you'd like us to share, any pictures that you might have, or if you'd like to actually appear on an episode, I would be more than happy to kind of have you join us and have a little conversation. So definitely pop over to the website. That is Soul Seekers Unknown, soulseekersunknown.com. You can check out some of our merchandise once we do get that posted. That's probably going to be a little bit before I get it up there, but please be patient with us. Again, like I said, right now, just trying to do all of this with a very small team of us. So, um,
I'm painting as fast as I can.
all right. Yeah. So Heather at the Grafted Monster Festival, Heather's going to be bringing some of her paintings. I will actually be bringing some of my manifest charms. So I actually make these charms using gemstones and skeleton keys with various different purposes to kind of if you're familiar with energy work and gemstones, that's kind of the idea is the gemstones are geared towards specific purposes and specific intents. So I will have those at the Grafton Monster Festival. I will have some merchandise for the podcast, so coffee cups, some t-shirts, that sort of thing. And then Heather is actually kind of piggybacking on the manifest idea, and she is doing manifest paintings. So again, stop by, see us. And definitely kind of join us at the Grafton Monster Festival, promote the festival. It's a nice little local event, and this will actually be my first time experiencing it. So, really looking forward to seeing everybody. All right. Well, I think that wraps up tonight's episode. So, again, we broadcast every Monday. So, this episode obviously recorded on Sunday, but it'll be launching on Mondays. So, we typically record on Sundays, launch on Mondays. I am looking to start ramping up my content soon with some investigative episodes. And as I've said before, those investigative episodes, which are boots on the ground, actually going to some haunted places, places where cryptids have allegedly been sighted, things like that. Those episodes will be exclusively for our subscribers. I do kind of want to give our subscribers something that our non-subscribers are not getting. And so for that reason, when I do introduce this new content, it will be for subscribers only, kind of giving you guys a little bit of inspiration to click that subscribe button. So, um, again, I do also on the YouTube channel have a community section. So if you want to actually join in some discussion, pop down there in the community section, send us a message. We love to hear from you. All right. Well, everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you again for supporting our channel, and we'll see you next time on Seekers of Otherworldly and Unknown Legends. Okay.